Today's episode is a story from the Ramayana about Laxman's battle against Indrajit and Hanuman to the rescue as he flies all the way to the Himalayas when his side needs a pharmacy run. Welcome to Stories from India. This is a podcast that will take you on a journey through the rich mythology, folklore, and history of the Indian subcontinent. I am Narad Muni, the celestial storyteller and the original Time Lord. With my ability to travel through space and time, I can bring you fascinating stories from the past, the present, and the future. From the epic tales of the Mahabharata and Ramayana to the folk tales of the Panchatantra, to stories of Akbar Birbal and Tenali Raman, I have a story for every occasion. The purpose of the stories is neither to pass judgment nor to indoctrinate. My goal is only to share these stories with people who may not have heard them before, and to make them more entertaining for those who have. In this episode, we are back to the Ramayana. The Ramayana is one of two major epics in Indian mythology, the other being the Mahabharata, which we have also covered on this show. The saga of the Ramayana begins in the kingdom of Ayodhya, with Ram as its crown prince. He almost became king, except his stepmother threw a spanner in the works at the last minute and forced him into exile for 14 years. Ram went, accompanied by his wife Sita and brother Laxman. Ram was an avatar of Vishnu, who is the preserver of the universe. Vishnu creates a balance between Brahma, the creator, and Shiva, the destroyer. Together, they are the holy trinity of Indian mythology. Not to brag too much, but Brahma is my dad, and I am president for life of the Vishnu fan club. And I'm also a regular on Mount Kailash, where Shiva lives. So this narration is about as authentic as it gets. Back to Ram, Lakshman, and Sita. They overcame several challenges in the wild. Demons and demonesses that were constantly trying to either kill, eat, or enslave them. Or all of the above. Ram and Lakshman had no problems with any of those demons and demonesses, until Ravan abducted Sita. Ravan was the ruler of Lanka and the mega villain in this epic. The 10-headed ultimate boss level character was full of so many superpowers that defeating him was virtually impossible. Take any pop culture villain, Lord Voldemort, Darth Vader, Scar, Jafar, Maleficent before she turned all good in the reboot. Add up their villainy, subtract any weaknesses, and multiply it by 10. And you get Ravan. Multiply by 10 because Ravan had 10 heads. Sita had been kidnapped without so much as a ransom note, ordering a cartload of money at a sinister rendezvous point. In the absence of a police force, CBI, or the Gumshida Talash Kendra, Ram and Lakshman got help from the next best option, the Vanars. These Vanars were a kingdom of monkeys led by their king, Sugriv. Of the Vanars, Hanuman, who was Sugriv's advisor and right-hand Vanar, provided most of that actual help. Hanuman located Sita across the ocean in Lanka. He delivered Ram's words of support and delivered Sita's message back to Ram. Burning down almost all of Lanka and getting the scoop on Lankan defenses were just side quests. Ram, Laxman, and all the Vanars crossed the ocean to get to Lanka. First, they had to build a bridge, which any civil engineer will tell you is hard enough now, and was much harder still, back in those days. Ravan's brother Vibhishan switched sides and teamed up with Ram and his Vanar army. And then the war began. The Vanars and the Lankans fought tooth and nail. Ravan's son Indrajit had achieved what he thought was victory when he very badly hurt both Ram and Lakshman. Luckily, Garud, the king of the birds, saved them. The battle started to go against the Lankans after that. Ravan entered battle himself, but Ram kinda embarrassed him on the battlefield. On Lanka's side, general after general fell, until later, Kumbhakarna, Ravan's mountain-sized brother, was killed as well. Only Indrajit and Ravan remained, and unless they pulled a rabbit out of a hat, their days were numbered as well. I don't mean that literally. A rabbit out of a hat was unlikely to tip the scales in their favor against the Vanars. We'll continue the story there. Indrajit screamed and woke up. His wife, Sulochana, was startled out of her sleep. Quick introduction here. Sulochana was Seshnag's daughter. Do you remember Seshnag, the ultimate snake? He is the massive snake in whose coils Vishnu rests. Sulochana was no snake herself, but she had her father's blood. There was a difference in opinion between Indrajit and Seshnag with regards to the marriage. Indrajit thought that his marriage with Sulochana was a love marriage, and Seshnag thought that his daughter had been abducted. It would be on brand, considering Indrajit's father, Ravan, was in the habit of abducting princesses left, right, and center. Sadly, no one asked Sulochana what she thought. But at this point, even the care that she showed for her husband might just have been because of Stockholm Syndrome. She asked her husband, "You look hysterical. Not another nightmare. What was it this time? The three-headed pink elephant? Or the blue orangutan with the steel claws?" "Neither. This was the worst of the lot. This one had just your regular John Doe, except he hadn't slept in 12 years. Why are you scared of a guy who hasn't slept in 12 years? Even if such a person exists, the poor guy must be so exhausted. He couldn't even harm a wingless fly lying at death's door." Sulochana was alluding to a prophecy that concerned Indrajit. At this point, I need to explain what was happening here. You see, a long time ago, Indrajit had defeated and imprisoned Indra, the king of the Devs and the ruler of Swarg. That story deserves an episode of its own. But the outcome was that Indra was only released after my father brokered peace. Yes, Brahma, the creator of the universe, sat at the negotiating table and made a deal with Indrajit. If he let Indra go, Brahma would grant him something in exchange. By the way, this is also how Indrajit got his name. Previously, he was just called Meghnad. Indrajit was my dad's idea. It means the person who won against Indra. Anyway, this was the opportunity that Indrajit had been waiting for. He demanded to be made invincible. Brahma couldn't really grant that. Unconditional invincibility was impossible. But hey, invincibility under some conditions was not. So they worked something out. Brahma offered for Indrajit to become invincible if he performed a yajna to summon a very special chariot. As long as Indrajit was on that chariot, no one could harm him. Now comes the catch. A person who interrupted Indrajit's yajna attempt would be the one who would end his life. Indrajit protested. Wait. You want me to release Indra just for this? Not happening. It's so easy to interrupt my yajna. My butler might do it if he's bringing me a drink or something. At least make it so that only a person who destroys my yajna can kill me. Brahma wasn't happy with that. So the two of them haggled. Finally, they ended up with a clause that only a person who hadn't slept in 12 years and who would also destroy Indrajit's yajna would be the only one capable of killing him. Brahma's haggling skills weren't at their best on that day. Indrajit may have walked away fully satisfied at the time. But as you can see from his recent nightmares, he was less than confident now. And he didn't know why, but the nightmares were occurring more frequently ever since the Vanars had landed on the Lankan shore. Maybe just a coincidence. Or maybe not. Maybe Ram was the ordinary chap who hadn't slept in 12 years. It couldn't be Hanuman or Sugriv. They were Vanars, not ordinary humans. His head hurt thinking about all this. Sulochana offered him an aspirin. And finally, they went back to sleep. The next morning, there was no trace of nervousness on Indrajit's part. He resolved that on this day, he was going to kill one of the Ayodhya brothers. Garud may have helped them once, but he wasn't always going to be there. And Indrajit's invisibility batteries were recharged, so he had a massive advantage now. He entered the battlefield looking for Ram, but it was Laxman who found him. A volley of arrows all aimed perfectly, and yet Indrajit managed to avoid every single one by disappearing. And by reappearing behind Laxman, he launched a few arrows of his own. Laxman narrowly avoided being hit, but just barely. This Indrajit chap was turning out to be a pretty tough cookie. Laxman unleashed his heat-seeking arrows, but again, Indrajit disappeared, along with his heat signature. And the arrows went on to hit a Lankan who was standing in the line of fire. Laxman was getting frustrated now. He was sure that he was the better archer. But one thing that is different in real life is that the target doesn't magically disappear and appear behind your back. Behind my back, huh? He thought. He thought he had an idea. He aimed at the place where Indrajit stood laughing. The arrow he was using was his U-turn special. Laxman fired it with a long enough distance setting to make Indrajit disappear. Indrajit reappeared behind Laxman, laughing again. But the joke was on him, because the arrow had turned 180 degrees mid-flight and came straight for Indrajit. It was just sheer luck that Indrajit was only scratched and not something more serious. Indrajit was upset by this. Enough of this game, Laxman. I'm going to end it now. I was saving this arrow for some kind of a showbiz event, but I'm going to use it on you now. Ooh, I'm terrified, mocked Laxman. What does the arrow do anyway? Does it talk and threaten like you do? Or does it run away, scared? It's something I call Vasavi Shakti, a 5 a.m. exploding heart arrow. But that's probably meaningless to you. You'll see a demonstration firsthand. Indrajit retorted, and he fired it. Laxman tried to counter the arrow with a few of his own. But if you know your catalogue of ancient Indian arrows, you'll know that it's futile to try and stop the 5 a.m. exploding heart arrow. The arrow pierced Laxman's chest and he fell. But it did not explode Laxman's heart. At least, it wasn't going to do so immediately. That was where the 5 a.m. part of the name came in. The arrow would leave the victim in a sort of coma until the next day at sunrise. That's when the victim's heart would explode. Not good. Not good at all. Indrajit howled with pleasure. He had done it. Laxman was as good as dead. In true evil mastermind fashion, Indrajit did not stay and finish off the job. He went back to the palace, throwing confetti around that he had brought along just for this reason. The Vanar army and Ram were in distress. Both sides decided to call an early end to the battle that day. The Vanars to mourn and the Lankans to celebrate. Everyone thought that Laxman was dead. But Ram examined him and realized that his brother was still breathing. He was just lying in some kind of stasis. Laxman is still alive. There's hope, he exclaimed. Sugriv was skeptical. He scanned the barcode on the arrow and pulled out the Vanar army field manual. It's Indrajit's, he said. I can see the arrow specifications. It's called the 5 a.m. exploding heart arrow, but the treatment section is completely blank. I don't know how we can save your brother. Oh, I knows what can save Laxman, said Buddha, who was an old geezer of a Vanar. There be a legend. Folk tongues speak of a magical herb that grows far away in the Himalayas. It can bring life to the dead. Whispers of this magical herb echo through time, and I am the one that knows the secret better than anyone else. I tells you, I knows how to fix it. I'm not sure I trust this new age medicine, Sugriv remarked. But we have got to try, Hanuman said. What other chance have we got? Sugriv wasn't convinced. Well, genius, how is anyone going to get us the herb from the Himalayas before 5 a.m. tomorrow? If you're thinking of ordering it on the Zomato intercity service, they only do metro cities. Quite right, agreed Jambavan, the bear. They just do the major cities. They can't do a broad, generic area like the Himalayas. Hanuman rolled his eyes. Ram saw what others hadn't. Hanuman, you could do it, couldn't you? Hanuman nodded that yes, he could indeed go there and come back before 5 in the morning the next day. But he needed some kind of a map or something. The Himalayas were over 2,400 kilometers long and covered almost 600,000 square kilometers. The odds of finding a needle in a haystack were way higher. Buddha said that he could draw Hanuman a map. He got out a rag and made some scribbles. X marks the spot. Steer clear of the spot marked Y. Here be dragons. And the one marked S is where the Yeti lives. You want to take a right there and go past the blue and purple lake that's marked H. You can't miss the mountain that the herb grows on. It be a pot-shaped hill. It be named Dronagiri. Are the letters on your map meant to stand for something? Hanuman asked. They be, Buddha clarified. X stands for extraordinary herb here. Y stands for why is anyone crazy enough to walk into the dragon's den? S stands for the secret cave where the Yeti lives. H is for the H2O that fills the lake. It'd be a very straightforward system. I'm surprised you don't grasp it, Hanuman. An intricate labeling system like that may have confused an ordinary mortal. But Hanuman was, Hanuman. He was extremely smart and intelligent and with a photographic memory. All he needed was a description of the herb, its leaves, and so on. But Buddha needed to hurry up because Hanuman had to leave now. Buddha said not to worry. He handed over to Hanuman what he said was the description of this wonderful herb. Without wasting any time on goodbyes, Hanuman launched himself into space. To cover the distance of almost 3,000 kilometers most quickly, he decided to fly in the stratosphere. You may ask, how did he keep himself warm at that altitude? How did he breathe with the air so thin up there? Again, we aren't talking about an ordinary human. We are talking about Hanuman. If you remember, he had launched himself into space to swallow the sun. And another time, he flew backwards, facing the sun. Back when he had been taking lessons from the sun. So little stratospheric jaunt didn't bother him. It may seem surprising that Buddha's directions were correct. It didn't take Hanuman long at all to find the hill shaped like a pot. Now, he just had to find the right herb growing on it. He opened up a bit of paper that had the description. It said, small plant, green-colored leaves. Hanuman sighed. That could be any of the thousands of herbs here. He considered getting one of each, but that might not be enough. It was past midnight now, and with at least another 4 hours flying time ahead, even with tailwinds, this was cutting it too close. Ideally, Laxman would be here as well, and then Hanuman could just try to feed him all the different herbs and see which one worked. If Laxman were here, that was an interesting thought. All Hanuman had to do to save Laxman's life would be to fly him somewhere where it was any time other than 5 a.m. Maybe the North or South Pole. And he would just have to keep Laxman facing a non-5 a.m. direction. But then, Laxman wouldn't be much help, so far away from the scene of action. Enough rambling. It was decision time. There was only one thing to do. If Laxman couldn't come to the mountain must go to Laxman. Hanuman worked quickly. He dug a hole all around the base of Dronagiri. He then changed his size into that of Ant-Man. I mean Ant-Man when he was about to go subatomic. Not the Ant-Man that was 80 feet tall. Quickly, Hanuman burrowed himself under Dronegiri and then suddenly made himself large as Ant-Man when he was 80 feet tall. He lifted the heavy mountain easily enough. Hanuman launched into space again, and a few hours later was back in Lanka. It was still mostly dark, so no one saw the vast shadow that darkened an already dark sky. Gently, Hanuman laid down Dronegiri next to the battlefield. Buddha was woken up. He was puzzled why Hanuman had brought along an entire mountain. Wasn't it obvious that Buddha had meant this unique shade of green? Why did Hanuman have to bring along this molehill? Hanuman sighed. He wanted to tell Buddha not to make a molehill out of a mountain, but saving Laxman's life came first. Buddha found the herb, which was called Sanjeevani Booty, on that hill, though the old Vanar still had to hike up the hill a bit. Quickly, they ground the plant into some kind of a paste, mixed it with water, and poured the potion down Laxman's throat. Laxman yawned and woke up. They had made it with just a few minutes to spare. Relief spread throughout the Vanar camp. Despite a very sleepless night, they all got ready for another fight. Indrajit, though, was not ready for another shock. Buddha is just a made-up Vanar. That word literally means old man. There is a real plant that has been offered up as a candidate for the Sanjeevani Booty. But, spoiler alert, besides Laxman, it hasn't been found to bring a victim of the 5 a.m. exploding heart arrow back from the dead. That's it for this time. In the next episode, we'll feature the Udupi Sri Krishna temple, along with 2 very famous characters, Madhavacharya and Kanakadas. If you have any other comments or suggestions, or if there are particular stories that you'd like to hear, please do let me know by leaving a comment or a review on the site sfipodcast.com or reply to the questions on Spotify's Q&A. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook. If you want to send me an email, it's storiesfromindiapodcast@gmail.com. Be sure to subscribe to the show to get notified automatically of new episodes. A big thank you to each and every one of you for your continued support and your feedback. The music is from purpleplanet.com. That's purple-planet.com. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.